Happy 2022 to each and every one of you. This video is going to be slightly different. In fact, today's videos are going to be slightly different. So instead of doing a vlog on the first day of 2022, I'm going to do two videos. One, which is this video, which is a roundup of the last year. And I'll try and insert some little images while I talk of some of the things that I talk about. And then the next video will be more of what I'd like to achieve in 2022. Places I'd like to visit, things I'd like to do, and some things I know will happen in the new year, or, you know, in this next coming year. So let's have a little, I've written some notes. I have a whole bunch of notes here of things that have happened through 2021. I think what I'll do is I'll separate my walks and adventures from the day-to-day stuff. 2021 saw me, touch wood, winning my battle with Ratty in the loft. You'll remember from 2020 during COVID lockdown, I was working really hard to board the loft out to remove Ratty from the loft. We'd had the rat man in, we'd had all sorts of shenanigans, and he was slowly, or they were slowly driving me crazy. And it seems with the boarding out, the more day-to-day use of that half of that loft as a usable space, having the loft hatch open during the day and not having it kind of completely closed off in the house seems to have deterred Ratty. So I'm going to take that 2021 win for me. Getting through the second lockdown, which started, well, just before Christmas, didn't it? And then continued through. In fact, I can't remember the dates of everything, but we were in lockdown again for a second time. This time I could work through it. So I did work through the second lockdown, but children were not at school. So I do remember doing a 35-hour, 40-hour week with children and having to help Kenzie through his homeschooling and his home learning, most of which he did manage himself, I have to say, but there were definitely elements of it that required my attention. So yeah, that happened for a second time. We had many lateral flow tests and continue to have many lateral flow tests several times a week. And we've had quite a few PCR tests as well between us. So yes, that was an experience of 2021. We had our first family hug together when lockdown was eased to a point where we could go back indoors and be with family members inside. And you will remember there was a video where I went over for a cup of tea with my parents and got to hug my mum and dad for the first time in a long time. We did the street tag for the village primary school. I don't know if you remember this, but I was going on walks and using an app which picked up tags, electronic tags. I can't exactly remember how it worked. I guess a similar way to Pokemon Go if you play that. And every time we walked past, we could tap on this tag and it would spin it automatically. And that was good fun. The kids enjoyed going for walks to collect their tags, and the school, the village school, became the area, the winner over this in this particular area. We became the winners for our area in the school's section of the competition. So that was good. Myself and the postman at the time, who lives in the village, who's no longer our postman, sadly, we have a different postman now. But myself and Craig organised a village litter pick and managed to coordinate using Facebook at a socially distanced what have you, because that was still in place, getting our village beautifully cleaned up. And a member of the community works for a recycling plant, and they had the many bags, and if I can find a picture of it, I will insert it in this part of the conversation, many bags to be taken away for recycling. So that was another 2021 win. One of the sad things of 2021 was losing my great uncle John, who was my godfather, who was one of my favourite people in the world. And yeah, he lost a very quick, thankfully quick, battle to cancer. Back to the happy things. The children and I raised tadpoles into froglets and then released them in the garden. Not that I've seen any of these frogs since, but I'm hoping they might come back this year and come back to the little wildlife pond we have. Another win was getting to the bottom of Kenzie's skin condition. So he's always had eczema, and obviously he's a teenager, so he was getting eczema and acne. And through the middle of the year, his skin was particularly bad. Sort of springtime, he was suffering with, he was bleeding on his clothes, his back was red raw. It was very unpleasant for him. And so we sought the help of a nutritionist. We did an exclusion diet for a month, I think it was, and then slowly reintroduced food and came to the conclusion it wasn't food related, or at least not an allergy or intolerance to anything in particular like dairy or wheat or anything like eggs or anything like that. So we just introduced more of a rainbow diet, so more fresh fruit and vegetables that are of a rainbow coloured variety. Obviously not rainbow fruit, because that would be ridiculous, but you know, eating a rainbow, as they say, if that makes sense, trying to eat something of every colour. And we also reduced his sugar intake and introduced good bacteria to his gut with nice drinks that thankfully he likes, but I do not. But he does, and they do him the world of good. Brendan started his driving lessons, not officially at this point, because you can get a driving lesson with a driving instructor for love nor money. I think they were rarer than, I don't know, what is it, rocking horse teeth. So I started him off on his driving lessons, and I'm grateful for that time, actually. It was a time that I will always remember, taking him out and giving him that first bit of knowledge on how to drive safely. Thankfully, a driving instructor has since been found, and he's doing much better under the tuition of a driving instructor. And I'd also like to mention that he passed his theory test second time round, and that was a big achievement for him as well. I had some changes to Spog, my camper van. So he got a bit of bling going on with new wheels. Well, not new wheels, they were just revamped wheels, the same old wheels, just with a spray can and a spray can of black paint and some new wheel trims. And again, I'm going to try and insert a photo here of the before and after for you. He also had a new interior fitted, and all of these videos are in my van life playlist if anyone's interested. But yes, he got a new interior. I ripped out his original interior that I bought him with, or a good chunk of it, and created something that worked better for me, that gave me an area where I could stand, where I could put the toilet when the bed was out. That meant I could have the bed out and have more space. And a new cooking area. So that was a big change to Spog. I also decorated some of the panels inside, did my own artwork on them, and that was fun. It's not very often I paint or do anything in a kind of drawy, arty, creative way that's not drawing something for the children to colour in or what have you, in my work situation. So it was nice to sit down and spend some time doing something creative and putting it in Spog. I also went to visit Donnie, and I'll come back to Donnie in a bit, but he put in a reverse camera for me and the roof vent. and also fixed my electrics when I had a small problem on a weekend away, and I drove to him and he had it fixed within 10 minutes. So that was fantastic, but I'll come back to Donnie in a minute. So that was some changes to Spog. Then Imo and I, and I'll come back to Imo again in a minute, but Imo and I did a tree challenge, which we haven't finished, but that's mainly because I've got to a point at least where most of the trees are not ones that I'm easily finding. The book is still in my bag and I'm still conscious of it, but most of the more common trees I've found, and so I'm finding it harder. I think I need to go to another arboretum to find some of the more challenging trees. But we had a lot of fun doing the tree challenge in the I Spy challenge books. We rehomed Munch and Crunch, and as you'll know, the tortoises were not mine, although they had spent many, many years living in my home, but they were the school's tortoises. Now, the head teacher is planning on retiring, I believe, this year, and it's a challenge to find anybody else who was going to look after them at weekends. They need specific care with lighting, heat, and they have a lifetime of a very long time. So after some conversations with the head teacher and me saying that really we'd reached a point where I needed them to be more part of the school and not living here quite so much, mainly because I want to start, well, I was travelling more in Spog, and I had agreed to care for them with the school when my boys were at the primary school, and Lee wasn't part of that agreement, and so it's just continued and continued. But with me going away in the van, that means that him and the boys are the ones left looking after them, and you might not think they take up much time, and they don't. But they were too big for the vivarium now, which meant they were spending more and more time just wandering freely around the house. And anyone who's got a tortoise will know when they poo, they'd like to walk through it several times and smear it all over your floor. And that was something that I didn't feel was fair to continue to ask Lee and the boys to keep doing when I wasn't here to do it. And also the tortoises fought. So we'd reached a point where they'd been fighting now for several years and decided that probably they needed to be separated. And so they were rehomed. My mum has one of them, the bigger one, Munch. And Crunch went to live with my sister's friend, who is a childminder. He did escape after probably less than a month of living with her. And a local farmer found him. He had walked several miles across several fields. But thankfully, he was found very quickly, and they designed their enclosure for him. So yes, the tortoises were rehomed. Not that long ago, we sadly lost Toothless, who was our very loved, long-standing pet, our bearded dragon. And he was a favourite with a lot of people, even those that didn't really like lizards. He was a familiar face on our vlogs and a big part of our family, and is very much missed. Forest School. We finally got the Forest School toilet base cemented into the ground, and that was a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. But then winter came round and the place became very muddy again because we've had a lot of rain, and so we've had to put Forest School on hold again for the winter period. And then when we go back, we will be building a decking section to level out the top of the toilet, and we will then be building the actual toilet outer, and it will be usable. We also had a pond put in, which was my dad and another member of the community came and helped on a work day and dug the hole for the pond. We had a very kind donation of wood chips, which were spread around all the paths. And we had a work day where various members of the community and my family came together, and we did lots of litter picking, cutting back, and just general maintenance on the site, which was fantastic. Then we had a fuel shortage in the UK. I'm not sure we actually had a fuel shortage, but there was a shortage of lorry drivers, or is a shortage of lorry drivers, which meant there was a shortage of people driving food to the supermarket, so the shelves were becoming empty. A shortage of people driving lorries to fill up the pumps, which then led to panic buying of fuel, which I didn't take part in. I'm just not going to use the van unless I need to. And Lee and Brendan were like, well, we'll use Lee's car till it runs out of fuel, and then we'll use Brendan's car to get to work. So that was the plan of action. But I did get to a point where after about a week and a half that I needed fuel. And so I had to go and get in the queue at about 11:30 at night at the service station and spend an extortionate amount of money because, of course, they put the prices up just so I could get some fuel for Spog. So that was an interesting few weeks of chaos in the country. Kenzie has just done his GCSE mocks and we're waiting on the results of those. And he also had a college visit, which he decided he wanted to then attend the college. But then a few weeks later, he went back to his current school and looked at their sixth form options and has decided he wants to stay on and do A-level history and a BTEC media studies course. So yes, we're not doing the college now. Kenzie caught COVID, which meant that although Lee, myself and Brendan didn't need to self-isolate because we were all fully vaccinated, Lee and Brendan's work did not want them in the place in case they picked it up and brought it to the work situation. And I wasn't allowed to open my doors because working from home as a childminder, I can't have the children come to the house when I have someone self-isolating with COVID. So that was 10 days isolation pretty much for all of us. We had the Silverstone Christmas lights, which again, these videos are all available. The Silverstone lights is in the van life section of my playlists. And we also had the charity tractor run through the village of, I think it was over 500 tractors. Took nearly an hour for them to all come through. Tractors, lorries, classic cars, classic trucks, all with tinsel, tooting their horns, fun programmed horns into the inflatables, Christmas inflatables. And it was all to raise money for the air ambulance. And that really put me in the Christmas mood. And you lot were fantastic and really supported me through the What's in the Hat Christmas guessing game before it goes cold. Yes, you lot were fantastic. I think all of the winners have been contacted, or have at least know that they've been contacted, but I'll mention it again. Bird Nest was the winner. Debbie Dusterhoff and Crafty Mama came in second, so they got a joint second, and Nicola Head came in at third place. And all of those people, if you haven't already contacted me, please email me. The email address is in the description below, and you can either select your favourite chocolate by telling me what you like, or let me pick one of my favourite chocolates and I'll send it over to you as a prize. And the other thing I have got back into this year is a bit more me time, a little bit more zen time down in my little zen zone down there. And starting on my, as Brendan so lovingly called it and has stuck, my Herbie nonsense, where I have been getting back into the different properties and healing and beneficial properties of herbs and more natural elements, and starting to make my own balms and salves and tinctures. And I'm going to really get together a nice herb garden so that I can start to grow my own. I know then they haven't had anything nasty sprayed on them or anything like that, and that's something I wish to carry forwards into this next year. Wow, okay, that's taken me 22 minutes to get this far, so I better hurry up on the next bit. Adventures. I've had walks to old churches, woodlands, Lots of local routes out of the village. I went to visit the Maharaj as well up on the Chilterns. I've been to Abingdon-on-Thames and done a little bit about the routes of the old tunnels and what have you in Abingdon. I went to see the Nuba survival sculpture and learnt a bit about the Nuba tribes. Went to see a very old lockup that was used back in the day when we had bobbies on the beat, and people who were drunk or disorderly were put in these lockups, and they were very interesting. This one was like a pyramid, but very interesting structures. And then in the morning they were taken to the bigger police headquarters or jails to be dealt with, and that would have been Oxford here. All of these walks and what have you are in my walks playlist or my van life playlist. I've done a few walks in the Chiltern Hills, Christmas Common. I've been to the Cotswolds quite a bit. So I've been to places like Lower Slaughter, Chipping Campden, Broadway, Tewkesbury, Burford, all sorts of places in the Cotswolds. I had the unfortunate incident where I had to report a case of domestic abuse to the police. I think that's where an awful lot of people on the van life community suddenly appeared on my vlog, so welcome and thank you. I've done canal walks, arboretums, Roman villas. I've been to Windsor, saw the Trooping of the Guards. Trooping of the Guards, was it? Something of the Guards. I've been to Wales to see Imo, and I'll come back to Imo again in a minute. But I've been to Wales, Gravesend, Reculver Towers, and filmed Old Aylesbury. We've done the MONSAL Trail bike ride, myself and Lee. I've had van meetups with Poshcats Camping. I've had van meetups with Campervan Tales, where I also got to see Lee, who has his own channel, Blue Box on Wheels, and Alex from Texla channel, I think that's what it's called. While we were there, that was in the Peaks, I did some bell ringing at Hathersage and also saw Little John's grave from Robin Hood. I've been to see the seals at Horsey Gap. I managed to see some baby seals. Had a beautiful beach park up and also went to see Horsey WINDPUMP. All of these are in my Van Life Travels playlist. I hung out with Tink and Sharon very kindly let me stay in the pub car park in Spog. And we had a gaming evening with Tink and his friends, made to feel incredibly welcome. I'll come back to Tink again in a minute. And I did Hurley Lock only the other day with my friend Virginia. And and wildlife rescues. We rescued baby doves that had fallen out of the trees in the garden, hedgehogs, and potentially a possibly dead jellyfish. But Imo and I were not entirely sure if it was alive or dead, but we put it back in the sea anyway at Nash Point in Wales. And again, that is a video you should go see because that was a giggle. I would like to do some very quick mentions to some fantastic people that I have either met this year or knew but have become more friendly with. Donnie in particular, I'd like to say a huge thank you to for his very kind offer of putting the roof vent in my van, which he did, then allowing me to stay on the driveway, which I was incredibly grateful for in my Spog, and then fitting the reverse camera in Spog, and then fixing my electrics when I had an issue and I was out his way, his part of the world. Tink and Sharon for their kindness in letting me stay in the pub car park, and I'm looking forward to seeing them again in February. I'd like to say a big thank you to my new friend who has come into my life, Virginia, who is the nanny in the village, and I don't know whether she'll watch this video, but she's been a big part of the latter part of 2021 for me, and we've just really gelled, so I thought she should have a mention. Lee from Blue Box on Wheels, we just clicked. Myself, him, Darryl and Keith just really clicked on our meetup back in August, so I want to say hello to him. Imo, who I had been watching and had been very chatty with, and we had been talking through lockdown digitally, but who then has become a very good friend and who I met up with and had some cool adventures with several times in Wales. And we have a few more potentially planned. I did send her a link to an idea I've got, which would make a fantastic video. So that hopefully is coming next year. And I've made a couple of online friends who have contacted me via email, and that is Harry Vagrant and David. And they've become good, fun people to chat to just through watching my videos. That's, you know, that's how it's come about. So I'd like to say a big thank you to them for taking the time out to contact me. I'm sure there are people that I have missed somehow, and I feel terribly bad if I have. But I was sitting here today thinking about all the different things that have happened this year and all the people that have been particularly sort of significant in my vlogging experience this year. And so I have mentioned those people. I'm going to stop the video now because we are at 30 minutes and that is far too long for a video. But the next video that I'm going to make is about my plans for 2022, and that should not be anywhere near as long as this one. Happy New Year, you lovely lot.